Good morning, YouTube. You all seem to like and agree with me when I listed the most overvalued cars, collector cars, for sale today. Except one person didn't agree with me. But I thought this week I would talk about what I think are the most undervalued cars. And since I want to see April Rose naked again, the first one is the Grand National. I've changed my mind.
What?
I've changed my mind.
Seriously?
No, I haven't. But
oh, come on.
I know you're still mad at me about the Grand National being overvalued.
No, it's definitely undervalued. That is a car that we need to keep up there forever.
We argued about that for long enough in the last video, but this list is cars that I think are undervalued. Ones that I don't currently own, though.
Right, because that wouldn't be fair to put those on the list.
Right, because if that were the case, I would just list all the cars I own to try and pump up the values and such. Even though a lot of them I bought because I think they are super undervalued. The SLR, way less than its MSRP. The CL65 AMG, there's a bunch. Sure. But this is a list, and most of them are very affordable cars that the average man could go and buy that I think...
Or woman.
Yes, that I think are very undervalued.
Right.
So the first one, though, is expensive, but in the Ferrari world, it is pretty cheap. And that is the Ferrari California, the unloved Ferrari.
Why? I mean, like, I get it, and I've read about them, and people don't like them, but, like, are they really that much worse?
A lot of people say that it's not a real, true Ferrari.
Right.
Well, it has the 430 engine, and it's just in the front. It's the first Ferrari to ever have a dual-clutch transmission, a factory-produced car. It's a very comfortable Grand Tour. It looks good. All the issues that were really plaguing people have sort of been solved now with like the tops that used to cost 30, 40 grand to fix. Now they have kits out to repair them. Wizard has done that once. The transmissions, which could fail, pretty much if they were going to fail, they've all sort of failed by now. There's a sensor inside of there that goes wrong. They're really solid cars, and compared to what Ferraris go for nowadays, you can pick up one of these for $70,000, $80,000.
Right, but it has that stigma attached to them, like, oh, it's a Ferrari, well, it's a California. And there's that stigma, what's making the value down?
Powerful V8. Not turbocharged yet, so you get the great noises, the pops and the bangs that aren't muffled by turbos. Dual clutch, looks good. Even has a back seat, you can throw the kids back there, or put the seat back. You like to gangster lean and put things way back.
But does that make it not a real sports car then, if there's a back seat?
Who cares? Not every Ferrari has to be a hardcore sports car. They could be gentle Grand Tours, and there's been several examples of that. So, yeah, I think the California deserves to be on the list, especially with things being so overvalued in the Ferrari world. So you're starting a little meh on the Ferrari.
Meh on the Ferrari. There's a stigma to it, the California.
Well, I mean, 31,000 mile car for $77,500.
You're like, oh, it's a Ferrari. Like, you could put a Ferrari badge on anything and be like, look, it's a Ferrari. But there's that stigma that follows California.
So the next one is kind of out of left field.
Okay.
The Mazda RX8.
You just say Mazda is so weird.
The Mazda RX8.
All right, now what is this doing on the list?
So this is the last rotary-powered sports car from Mazda. They recently said that the rotary's coming back, but it's in like a SUV or crossover plug-in hybrid to bring back the rotary. So this was the last one, and the prices are insanely cheap. And yes, I know the motors fail on the RX-8s left and right like crazy, but same goes for the RX-7s, and they're all loved in $50,000 plus for nice low mileage examples.
Right.
Look at this, April. 32,000 miles, $8,500. 24,000 miles, $14,000.
Crazy.
$12,000. One even sold for $3,200.
I would rather get this than a brand new car, because brand new cars, even with all the tax and everything added to it, they're really expensive. I would much rather go this direction. And I think that the last year for the rotary engine, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, the last Mazda sports car to have a rotary engine has suicide doors that pop out sort of that way. For the back. Little back doors that pop out suicide, like
cool.
Lincoln style.
Right.
Yeah, and it's a good looking car. Of its day, it was definitely lusted after by at least people my age and things. Thought it was really cool that they came back with the RX-8. But they are absolutely worthless. And yes, the motors blow at 50, 60, 70, 100,000 miles is a miracle, but fix it. It's less than $5 grand to fix compared to like a Porsche 911 where an engine rebuild's like $30,000.
Right. These are really cool cars.
Yeah.
I agree with you on this one.
Okay, well, thank you very much. The next one on the list, we're going back to classics, and it's the Imperial.
This one specifically.
I would say the mid-60s, mid to late 60s Chrysler Imperial.
Yeah.
I say that, but it's wrong because Imperial was its own brand back in this
Was
day.
it really?
So it was above Chrysler.
Okay.
So you had the Imperial Crown convertibles, the coupes, and all this stuff. In 1966, they got the 440.
Right.
And despite that, if this were a 68 440 Charger, it'd be,
Right.
$50,000 to $100,000. These sell for nothing. They made them in the hundreds, like 500 convertibles per year. The coupes, like these were so expensive that they didn't sell a lot of them. So like this one, a beautiful convertible for $25,500.
Wow. That is a land yacht, and it's beautiful. That
Right.
sweeping dash. I love the look of
And then
that.
this one is the Mobile Director Package
Oh.
Coupe. Sold for only $13,500. This is a 440 car.
Did that seat turn around?
Correct. But not only that, look, it has a tray. You put a typewriter on it, so you can drive along like in a Mad Men set where you're dictating to your secretary and having a conversation and writing. I mean,
It was born like that?
Correct.
You're kidding.
Correct.
That is amazing. That's an innovative idea. I absolutely love that.
Yep. Seat flips around, tray comes out.
The coolest green interior.
440 power, air conditioning. These things are smooth, so well built. I got in trouble at Barrett Jackson a little while ago when I was describing one and talked about how well they hold up as survivors because they're so well built. But then the seats, the leather especially. Do you remember this? The sperm whale oil. Not whale sperm oil.
Well, you could have just said whale oil, but you had to say sperm. Like you had to dignify it with that adjective of being specific to sperm whale oil.
In the brochure, they say that they coat the leather with sperm whale oil. To give it, extra softness and durability. And I found it very funny, but also very interesting because that's obviously whaling is something that is fallen out of fashion. Obviously, whales were harvested to the point of extinction, so something needed to change. But back in the 60s, they were coating the seats with this stuff, sperm whale oil, and it made them pretty much invincible. Original leather in these things in the 60s, most of them are original, and they've held up really, really well because of this, in my opinion.
Not just whale oil, but sperm whale
this really cool Mobile Director Package, 440 powered, $13,500 in great condition.
That is cool. That is very cool.
So we'll go back to modern cars. Next on the list, the Jeep Wrangler TJ Rubicon.
I thought all Jeep Wranglers were just good value. Like the prices were too high on them. And now you're throwing it out that there's one that's actually undervalued.
Wagoneers super high. I talked about the Cherokees, the XJ Cherokees.
I'm just talking about the Wranglers, the Jeep Wranglers. They hold their value extremely well.
But this Jeep right here is the end of an era. The last generation of the 4-liter inline-six, which is just invincible in Jeep world. Great torquey motors, and the Rubicons was a factory off-road package that offered locking axles, taller suspension, a lot of other cool tricks, and it just looks really good. And this is the nicest one on earth to sell. 700 miles on it. It only brought $36,000.
That's brand new. Is that real?
New.
Can you cheat on that? Because really 700 miles on a 2006.
But you can buy ones with under 100,000 miles for teens. Like this one, really nice yellow one, sold for $14,500. And there's endless examples of it. If you want a cheap, very capable off-roader, I feel like this is so undervalued, especially when you talk about other Jeeps and other off-roaders where they're so expensive.
Right.
This was a really cool car that people really wanted back in the day. And well, they're not having their day now, at least yet.
No, and I'm shocked. I'm shocked this one's on the list.
And speaking of off-roaders, the next car on my list, the very first generation Porsche Cayenne Turbo.
Now, what is it about these that people don't really like and don't value?
So this was widely credited with saving Porsche because they built an SUV that they sold in mass, and this in the box. They're like, it's not a Porsche. Well,
they're really cool.
They needed to make them.
Right.
The Turbo is especially cool. 450 horsepower V8.
Right.
Lots of power. They have adjustable air ride suspension that, unlike Land Rover, is actually reliable, well built, doesn't just pop randomly. It has a locking transfer case, auto locking axles and things. Very, very capable off-roader, unlike a lot of its other contemporaries. So it was a capable off-roader, but it also outperformed something like a BMW X5 that had no off-road capability. Or an ML55 had low range. This thing has low range, but really wasn't much of an off-roader. So this thing walked both lines in capable off-roader and performance SUV. And they look really good when somebody does the off-road treatment to it. The extra lights, the lift kit, and all that stuff. But they are cheap. So this one, 46,000 miles for $25,000.
I cannot
But they are
believe
all over the place
how low that is.
for teens with low mileage. So this one,
Wow.
69,000 miles, nice, sold for 15 grand. But ones with miles on them, under $10,000 all day long. This one was modified, sold for $9,600, lifted with all the lights and things.
What is the deal with them? They're beautiful cars.
And compared to Land Rovers, compared to just about any other German SUV, these, I believe, are the most reliable.
Right.
G-Wagons, similar,
Yeah.
but G-Wagons are so expensive.
Right.
We bought that G-Wagon for like 40 grand, and
Yeah.
now I know it's using oil and needs a motor replacement, unfortunately. But this, pretty much just as capable for a fraction of the price.
What is the deal with them, though? What do you think they're getting lost on?
I think the looks are a little weird,
Yeah.
as you can see, and then I just don't understand it personally.
Yeah. They're beautiful cars. I'd rather get this than a new car any day. This is a really sweet ride with a great, powerful engine. Looks so fun to drive.
Yes, the next one on my list is the end of the line for the Firebird Trans Am.
Right.
So an LS-powered 2001, 2002, when they had the most performance and all the upgrades with the LS.
Right.
Trans Am WS6 6-speed. So if a Supra Turbo that has no miles on it is worth $200,000.
That's right.
The second most popular, probably engine to tune and hot boy, whatever, an LS engine in the end of the line of the Trans Am. I get there's a lot more of these out there, but with low mileage. This one was 1,800 miles, sold for $35,000.
Crazy.
With the Performance W6 S6 package, 6-speed.
It's crazy that the Supra is just kicking its butt that hard.
Right. It's just such big fanboys, but I feel like there's big fanboys for this as well.
Right.
Except they haven't just sort of fever pitched the prices up quite yet.
I mean, it does have that old school retro styling, which appealed to that boomer generation. And so I can see the difference in that.
But it's such a good inflection point in time because we're looking at the end of the Trans Am forever. A few years later, Pontiac's dead. But we're at the beginning of the legendary LS engine introducing itself in '98. In the last few years, the Ram era looks really, well, weird but cool. I just think these are fantastic and super undervalued because even ones with some miles, like 6,000 miles, was brought $28,000.
Right.
15,000 miles brought $23,000.
Is this like a hold and buy type of car? Do you think it will come up? You're predicting?
I think it is super, super undervalued for what it is. A really nice example. Yeah, there's plenty out there with 150,000 miles, driven beat up ones, but buying a nice one for 20 to 30 grand? It seems like it makes a lot of sense considering the rise of so many other cars of this era that have gone crazy, and this one, well, it hasn't yet.
Right, right. So as opposed to like every other car kind of around the early 2000s, this one you think you're going to invest in and you're going to get your money back.
I think so.
All right.
Yeah. Next on the list is a classic Mercedes. 280 SE 4.5.
These are sophisticated.
Last 2 years of this 108 chassis body style. And I made a video when I bought one of these years ago saying that nobody wants these things. And it doesn't make any sense because, look, a beautiful sedan with a V8, classic styling. Look at the prices, $13,600, $12,750, $13,000, $16,000. And these are all nice examples, nice enough to go on and bring a trailer. These aren't projects. I think a project will bring next to nothing. Yeah, here's a project that sold for $5,300. You buy one with rust, it makes no sense because they're worth such little money. But you get a beautiful, luxurious four-door sedan with a V8. It's the early coming of this V8 that continued for a long time. It's very reliable.
I think Mercedes is very timeless because they don't drastically change their body styles. And so you're always sporting that Mercedes emblem and they look gorgeous. The front end is completely timeless. I don't understand why these are so undervalued.
There's certain coupes, same body style look as this, that bring multiple six figures. There's some convertibles now of this, the earliest V8 iteration of this, that's a convertible, that can bring $5,700,000. But for 13 grand, yeah, you got 2 more doors in the back and a roof over your head, but you have the same driving experience.
Exactly the same engine, exact same everything else.
Yeah, it was an earlier generation of the V8. This one's more refined, but the same look. They have the same seats, the same dash, the same everything.
Do you feel like there's a little play, like I know, when we're at the auction, if there's just 2 people that want a car, that price goes up higher. And it could just be tiny, small population that wants that older version of the Mercedes, and that's the only reason why the value goes up.
I suppose it's a narrow pool, but you would think you put this in front of somebody, they go, wow. Especially with us at Barrett-Jackson, where people are just looking, they're not sure what exactly they want, but they're sort of browsing around like a husband and wife wanting to buy a car. And they see this and they don't think $13,000, $15,000 for one that's in great shape. Yeah. So next on my list is Vipers.
Okay, they're undervalued.
Undervalued.
Really?
So think about it, how expensive exotic cars are.
Yes.
And you can get a Viper GTS of that mid-90s, that iconic look for around 50 grand, or an early Viper for mid-30s, low 40s, or the second generation, I guess they call it the third generation because there's an upgrade, starting in 2003.
Right.
I sold it recently, but we bought it for like 40 grand. You get a V10 with 500 horsepower, something very exotic that people would have had a poster up as a kid on the wall.
Right.
And you would have parked it next to multi-million-dollar exotics and fit right in, and they sell for 40, 50 grand.
What happened to that? Was it some sort of marketing thing? Because I'm surprised they still don't make them anymore. They were so cool when they first came out, and then it just slowly died off.
Yeah, it sort of ran its course after 20 years or so. They decided to go out with a bang with the ACRs.
Which are really cool.
Those are huge money, honestly, $200,000-$300,000 for the right one. But these more common Vipers, and yes, they did make a lot of them, but what other V10 exotic driving experience are you going to get for under 50 grand?
I mean, I will say they're really tight inside. There's like a small fit. And so
very
they're
unrefined,
not
especially the early Vipers. The toupe, the slide-in windows and things.
Yeah.
I really like the sweet spot of these mid-2000s ones, even though the one we bought was a little annoying at Barrett-Jackson.
Because it's really loud.
Yeah, they had taken the catalytic converters off and the mufflers off, and then we drove 300 miles in it and lost our hearing. But fixed that before I sold it, obviously.
They're still fun, but they're not comfortable, which sports cars, I guess, aren't made to be comfortable. That's the reason to have them. They go fast, and that's the point.
Reasonably comfortable for a sports car, but you're right. So you're kind of meh on the Viper.
On the Viper. I'm surprised they don't make them anymore, but the value dropped off, and people didn't want them anymore, so it makes sense.
I will redeem myself with the last one.
It better not be...
No, I wouldn't do like a PT Cruiser or an HHR or a Plymouth Prowler. No.
Really?
The last one I can't imagine you not agreeing with. It is the Hummer H2.
Oh, but are you saying that it should be worth more than it is?
Correct.
No chance.
It will most certainly be worth more. Like the nicest Hummers in the world are selling for low 30s,
if you're going to get a
20s.
Hummer, you want the original H1, or there's no point to have that massive car with that low gas mileage. Like, what's the point to it?
Because it was the ultimate flex car of the mid-2000s.
Totally
Every single episode of MTV Cribs. I can't mention the Escalade because I own one, so I couldn't put it on my list, but this shares the same chassis. But every single episode of MTV Cribs, Escalade or Hummer H2.
Yeah, every athlete, every rock star had one of these.
And the Hummer H2 was arguably cooler at the time.
Right. At the time, I agree with you with chrome rims on it.
So everybody wanted a Hummer H2. Every single Midwesterner wanted a Hummer H2.
This was the
stupid
flashy.
as it is, as terrible as it is off-road, even though it has the hooks in the front like the original Hummer where, you know, you're supposed to lift it up by a helicopter, but all it is plastic that'll break off if you pull on it too hard.
It's true. This is the ultimate, like, I'm not that great of a guy. I might, you know, not be lacking in certain areas, but I got an H2. So, you know, maybe there is something special going on.
I own a Hummer H2. I thought it was really cool.
That's a car that a girl would look at and be like, okay, there's a little something going on with this guy that isn't right. So he needs something flashy. That's what goes off in my head.
Didn't you date a guy with a Hummer H2?
Don't even start. Don't even go there.
You talked about you had to get past the Hummer H2, right?
We're not talking about that.
Sorry. All right.
But the Hummer, you know, it's just something that you look at and you're like, well, that guy's kind of compensating for me. And that's kind of just the first thought of it.
Yeah, but I mean, not only is it something that was really cool at the time, but it's also something that just, it doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
A simple 6-liter Vortec engine that is pretty unbreakable. None of the weird cylinder deactivations, or now Ford's gone with turbos and different, you know, cam phaser things on the Ford side. This is a simple, durable platform, as long as you don't do any hardcore off-roading, that you can keep running literally forever. But this is something I could easily see as millennials sort of come up and get money.
Right.
I'm going to get me a Hummer H2. And sort of like Jeep Grand Wagoneers of the generation before, like, man, I really wanted a Wagoneer. And now, like a 10,000 mile Wagoneer's $100,000. This one, I could see it becoming a $100,000 vehicle.
What?
I mean, there's already maybe some that are like the Alphas that have the 6.2.
You're a little warm.
But I'm talking about these, there's only 1 year for that. I'm talking about these, 2003 to 2007.
Really? You think these are going to go up to $100,000, 6 figures for these H2s?
Yeah.
You are crazy.
I think there is enough enthusiasm for these, and as time goes on, it'll happen.
You are absolutely lost your mind.
So maybe this list is worse than my overvalued
well, that's
list.
Not
I don't
worse.
know.
No,
April's
nothing,
been pretty critical, but
nothing could be worse than that one.
That is my opinion.
Out of this total list, which is your buy and hold right now, the number 1 car on this list.
For me, if I were to buy one to keep, it'd probably be the Trans Am.
Really?
I really like
That
those Trans
shocked
Ams,
me.
the hog-nosed Trans Ams.
Really?
I think they're really cool. Yeah.
I thought you were going with the Mercedes or the California, which you seem to be in love with. You're going the hog-nosed.
Yeah, if I were to buy one to hold, I think that's one. Because the Hummer H2, you wouldn't step inside of. I'd love to get one of those again, but she wouldn't ride in it. Oh,
I'd be embarrassed.
Thank you so much for watching.
I'd be like, I don't know this guy. I'm not with him.